Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I hope you're having a great day. Today, our special guest is Chirag. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Me too. I love it. Can you tell us first about yourself and what kind of content you create? So introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. So, number one thing about me that I always tell everyone, and my friends are tired of hearing this all the time, is I grew up in a small business family. Like literally, I was like 31 days old, and my family was immediately like, okay, you know what? We could take him to the stores. Before the financial crisis, we used to have clothing stores over in Manhattan. So just imagine this like 1 or 2 year old kid. First couple words I'm learning are like 99 no tax, buy these leather jackets, these dresses, and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up in that sort of small business entrepreneurial environment. But growing up, as fun and sort of amazing as that entire experience was, it was very frustrating that we didn't have access to business education and knowledge. And my family, immigrants, never went to college for business or anything, entrepreneurs their entire life. But there was just a lot going on at all times, right? And anytime we wanted to learn something new, it was always either hidden behind a paywall or all these like ridiculously hard ways to get access to information. So growing up, I mean, kind of just dealt with it, right? But I went away to college, and I remember walking into the library one day and going, you know what, like, there has to be a college, like business section in this college for sure. Walk in and there's like these rows of all these business books that I'd always just like hoped that one day I'd be able to afford or own, right? And I just sort of nerded out right after that. I had access to some amazing business professors, the chance to talk to amazing entrepreneurs. And the entire time as I'm going through this, I'm sharing a lot of this with my dad. An Indian immigrant, never went to college, entrepreneur his entire life. And suddenly he's coming back and saying, oh my God, I'm like, hey, I used the Porter's Five Forces, or I used the 4 Ps of marketing the other day. And I was like, wait a second, like this actually helps people, right? Like, why not share this? I'm not proud to say we took a couple years where I wasted a lot of time trying to perfect everything and all that. But for about, I want to say about the last year and a half, I've taken it pretty seriously on TikTok. So long story short, I create content to take business concepts and education, break them down for small business owners. Currently, most of my content is created on TikTok, where I tend to look at real life examples, right? Like, why does Barbie never show its pricing in its ads? Or why does McDonald's use certain colors, right? So taking real life examples, breaking them down, and helping people sort of think beyond just looking or taking something at surface level. And the sort of tagline is making business education and knowledge more accessible for small business owners. I'm going to
That's
pause
awesome.
there, toss it
Yeah.
back to you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great, man. Like I've seen some of your videos on YouTube.
Uh,
I do not see a lot of them on TikTok, but mostly on YouTube, and it's really
yeah.
great the way you educate people about business and I like your videos. They're kind of edutainment style, right?
Try to be, try to be.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all of this stuff is fascinating, right? It's exciting stuff, right? And I love the storytelling aspect of it, but I appreciate it. YouTube's where I'm trying to go after TikTok, right? Because it
Oh,
has more
so
of long.
so I have a question for you about that. Like, which
Yeah,
platform did you start with first? Like, was it all of them at the same time, or
yeah,
can you
yeah.
walk us through your journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. So originally, right? Remember how I said that we spent about a year or two where I just sort of wasted, right, trying to
Hmm.
perfect everything. Originally, the plan was always YouTube, right? I mean, YouTube's long form always going to be. I think at least for now, is still king of long form content. And the idea is a lot of this information, as cool as it is to just be the quick, punchy 30-second, 1 minute video, the real benefit of like, okay, here's what this example is and how you can use it in your business, that's going to come from long form videos, right? Where I can break it into small little pieces. So the goal was always to get to YouTube, but obviously knowing that YouTube, the reps, you can't get that in. At most, I would have
Hmm.
gotten one video a week. So originally, it was this goal of going, okay, we're going to do Instagram. And at that time, TikTok, this was, I want to say 2018, 2019-ish. TikTok was just starting to, become like kind of big. So it's like, okay, we're going to do Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, because they had like their spotlight thing, whatever. So started off with a lot. Now, however, when I started taking it really seriously about a year and a half ago, I think it was forcing myself to go down to one platform. And it was like, okay, focus on one. And so TikTok has been the primary platform for about the last year and a half. And now slowly you're starting to see like, now that I'm a little more confident in what I can do and the audience I've built on TikTok, moving more into YouTube, right? Instagram, Snapchat are more like once in a while when I get the chance to kind of post on there.
That's awesome because I kind of agree with you about YouTube being like the king of long form, and it's like something about YouTube that it gets more respect than TikTok. I don't know why, but
Well, I mean, I was talking to
it
a
makes
friend about
sense.
this recently. Someone who was starting the other day, and he was asking that question of like, where should he go? And as much as I love TikTok, right? I mean, TikTok's whole fame or its ticket to glory is this idea that we will help, like anyone can become famous pretty much overnight, right? Any one of your videos can blow up. But the downside of doing that, right? I don't know about you, but a lot of my TikTok views, when I look at the analytics, come from almost 98% come from the For You page, as opposed to my existing followers, right?
Which means people just watch you, get entertained, and buy, like they go.
Bang, bang, right? But the downside, and then so the plus side of that is you can grow really big, right? So when I look at TikTok, I see it top of funnel. But the downside is that you don't actually build, or at least I don't see myself building a huge like dedicated audience, right? Like there are a few people who will show up at all in the comments on every video, and it's amazing. But for the most part, I think that even my followers aren't seeing my videos a ton of times. It's always new people versus YouTube, where I mean there is also that dilemma in YouTube as well, that a huge number of your viewers won't always be your subscribers. But I think YouTube does a better job of showcasing your videos to an audience you've already established, right?
Yeah.
So I think you could build like 50,000 on TikTok is nowhere equivalent to 50,000. Like,
yeah, it's funny you said that.
That
I've seen like a Twitter thread like maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was like basically, would you rather have like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube or 100,000? Yeah. And most people went for YouTube. It was like, oh, makes sense.
Yeah. If you could sustain it. That's the thing I would say. I feel like people say it and they don't have the caveat. Is like, if you can handle the 10,000 viewers and you can actually keep them active, yes. Otherwise, if you're just like a calm, easy content creator and you're just trying to like take it nice, then I would take the 100,000 on TikTok. Because I think there is a certain level of, I mean, lack of a better word, clout, right? Of having this idea of like, okay, I have 100,000 on TikTok. It proves something to brands and to other creators. And I think it serves as more as like a social proof. The YouTube one is like, if you can maintain those 10,000 and continue to keep posting good quality content and you could have 100,000 on TikTok and not have to take it as seriously. But if you have 10,000 on YouTube, I feel like you're treating it like it's
it's more serious, and that seriousness comes with a lot more stress, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Chirag, can you walk us through your content creation process and just basically like what would a content creation day look like for you?
Yeah. So I actually have a 9-to-5 job as well, right? So I work for a tech company, and like that in of itself tends to take up a huge portion of my time, right? Between travel, working, and all that kind of stuff. So usually my content creation is either done after work, right? And I like to joke that I have a 9-to-5, which is the tech company, and then my 5 to 9.
Yeah.
I know. Which I don't even think I actually even mentioned Entry, like the name, but yeah, the content under the name Entry. But with Entry, it was this idea of, I usually get either stuff done at night, which is kind of tough after work because I'm not really thinking straight right at that point. But usually it's the weekends, right? Catching up on
weekends.
Things. Okay. Yeah. The content creation side of it, right? As far as like what my day tends to look like, I think it's what I've found is there's 2 types of content I end up creating. And it's like the distinguishing factor of it is whether or not I'm looking at the camera. Right. So a big pillar of my content originally when I started off was this idea of looking directly at the camera. Sorry, I'm like doing this because I have the camera set up right there. Right. Is looking directly at the camera and trying to like say things, right? Like the typical videos, like, here's what you should do, blah, blah, blah. But it always felt very sort of fake or not like it was like I was always doing a play. Right. And when I felt the most sort of authentic and what I enjoyed doing the most was when I was actually talking to someone. So what I did is I set up a camera permanently mounted on my desk, and I do all my one-on-one sessions that people book. And then as well as like those, a lot of like the workshops and series that I do. And then I just have it filming on the side, and I'm able to cut those into clips. So a lot of my sort of content creation at the moment tends to look like actually doing one-on-one session series and then exporting that and pulling clips from it. What I've started doing, however, I think there is a value in the looking at the camera and talking kind of videos. For those, what I've started doing is forcing myself to become spontaneous. So originally, you would never catch a video that wasn't made on like a perfect 4K camera and ton of editing and stuff. I've started forcing myself to go, you know what, the content of the content actually matters, not the quality all the time, right? Especially on a platform like TikTok, where I think people expect you to have this sort of raw, in touch feeling with you, right? So I've been forcing myself to take my phone out and randomly just make videos. Which has been honestly much more which we were talking about right before we started recording, right? This idea of finding something that's streamlined, which makes it so much easier to just get to the content as opposed to all the barriers in the way.
I'm curious to ask, did you see any difference in the analytics with the raw format and the edited one?
Yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. So long ago, right? First video of mine that actually popped off did I think 1.7 million at the moment, right? That video was me speaking at I was doing this workshop, right, with a bunch of business owners, and I was speaking there, and I did something about Barbie. Put the video up. Horrible audio, horrible quality. I mean, the quality is this bad that half the comments are people going, "Oh, like, is this CGI or is this like the metaverse or whatever?" Because at the time the metaverse word was first coming into play, right? And then audio wise, also people are just let's hate it, right? But it did the best out of all my videos, which up until then, all my videos until then were all like very edited and fast paced and cut every 5 seconds, bings, whatever, right? All the typical sort of TikTok, Instagram, scammy guru vibes, right? Kind of editing. But I would do that. But this video performed the best out of all of them. And what I realized was that people were leaving comments because the content itself was actually valuable, right? People were willing to keep watching as long as it was a fascinating story or something interesting in it. So what I've actually found is the content, the sort of professional camera setup does work. What I found is it doesn't matter. Actually, here's how I'm going to put it. It doesn't matter what I do with my audience as far as using a professional camera versus using my phone versus just off the dome, so long as the actual thing I'm telling them is valuable. And it's not just me rambling for the sake of making a video, right? Like some people will be like 5 easy side hustles you can start today. That kind of content wouldn't work for my audience because that's just content for the sake of content versus, hey, we're going to take a look at that side hustle that people talk about. Here's 5 examples of a business that's pivoted and used it, right? That'll be more valuable content. So it's that sort of valuableness of it. What I have, however, noticed for the videos where I'm talking to the camera, doing it on my phone, comments and other things are a lot more natural for people. I found that the audience actually does interact because they feel like, oh, this is just a normal conversation with some guy as opposed to this professional video. I'm going to pause there because I've been talking a ton. Toss it back.
No worries.
So please don't hesitate to cut me off, man.
No, I leave all the guests, finish their sentences and give us all you got.
Yeah, I love it. Zach lets me talk as much as I want, dude. I love this.
No worries. So, Chirag, I want to ask you about the content creation process in terms of the software and the tools you use. Can you tell us a bit more about which kind of gear you have and the tools you have?
Yeah. I actually can here. So the number one thing I did for myself, right, I remember for me, the number one goal, the number one goal for content creation in general for me is the idea that when I have an idea to be able to film it and put it out as quick as possible, right, is reduce the number of friction. Because originally what used to happen was I used to think of all these ideas, jot them down, and then I would have I'd have to plan a day where I would shave, do all my, do everything, set up all my lights, put the camera up. And it was by the time I did all of that, I was so exhausted that when I was doing these videos, you could just see me go, or my eyes are all red and stuff, right? Even right now, we're filming this at 11 p.m. You can see I'm a little tired already. But so what I ended up doing was the number one thing was, let me look at every little part of that cycle, wrote down every tiny little step I take. How can I just minimize it? So for example, I used to spend time on setting up lights. I permanently mounted lights on top of my monitor or on top of my desk, right? I used to have to set up my camera. I got a desk tripod here. I can even show it on this, right? Which I recommend, the Joby tripod, right? Set it up, have it all ready to go. My camera always set on the exact settings that I want it to be set on, right? This battery charging, it's always just constantly plugged in. The same exact wire that's charging this thing, as soon as we're done from here, I'm just going to take this, plug it into my computer, start exporting right away, right? And it's all these, the mic itself is permanently just set on my desk, right? All the wires are done, cable management to the max. But the goal was, let me reduce every little step I have to take down to these little things. So gear wise, that's what kind of helps me, other than my phone, which I tend to film on a Google Pixel, right? Which I'm a big fan of.
Same.
Yeah. You use
No, I have the OnePlus 8 Pro, but I might get the 7 Pro next year. So
nice. I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan. But that, and then CapCut for when I'm doing it on my phone is just I think a phenomenal sort of. Plus, especially for the videos where I'm doing on my phone, I want it to come natural.
I think it's actually from TikTok, right?
Yeah, so ByteDance bought CapCut, or I didn't create CapCut, which I thought was hands down. I remember when they did it, it was one of the best business branding moves whatsoever, right? And the beauty is they don't publicize that they own it, right? the whole idea be like, that's the beauty of TikTok, right? Is TikTok made content creation more accessible for people, right? Which we could talk about later, right? But
Absolutely.
with the camera stuff, if I'm doing it with the professional camera and all that, then I'll usually use Premiere Pro, which I
Premiere,
just
okay.
absolutely, yeah, I'm an Adobe. I just love Adobe. I mean, I hate the monthly fee, right? But
Yeah.
I do love a Premiere and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna pause there now.
Okay, that's awesome. I used to be a Premiere guy, by the way, but now I'm into Final Cut. It's just like I had some issues on my computer with Premiere, and once my friend he was actually a filmmaker, and he was working with DaVinci and Premiere and also like Avid, but he showed me his project on Final Cut and how quickly it was exporting. I was like, all right, I'm a believer now.
Yeah. No, definitely. The first major purchase I made for my content creation journey was I actually bought a computer that had the ability to handle 4K and like exporting and stuff, right?
Okay, that's nice.
If you don't do that, I feel like I take that for granted. Every now and then I have to remind myself that the idea that I can export as quick as I can isn't normal whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially when you're on time schedule or deadlines.
Absolutely.
So
Chirag, it's like finding these small things to speed up time.
Exactly, like exactly what you're saying now. The small things that to speed up the process, but also to go back to the idea of streamlining, right? You want to have quick access to your studio, record and publish. That's it. You don't want to spend too much time in. I did that before, honestly. Like I made a big mistake, like as a tech YouTuber, like bought all the gear, have 2 cameras, and I remember like. Even like in 2019, I made my first YouTube video. And I remember like recording the video and like after finishing, I was like, maybe I should delete the footage because I'm waiting for the Black Magic 6K. So I was like, oh my God, like So learning from this, like as a perfectionist, like I come from a graphic design background, and for me, it was always a struggle. So what I tell creators now is like, you don't have to fix everything, right? Like for me personally, like branding or design, I don't have to fix that. Like it's for granted for me, like it's natural talent. But I'm really, really struggling with those small things, like not to be a perfectionist, to just do the work. And what I tell people now, and I think you can agree with this, is just focus on your weak link. And then you're like 1% rule every week, and then you're on the way to success. Can you share with us a bit of your struggles? That's the question I want to ask. The struggles that you face in creating content, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. Oof. I'm gonna tackle three major struggles, right? Or like a combination of this.
The more the better.
The first sort of major struggle was just the barriers of getting content out. I mean, yeah. So actually, the first thing was just figuring out why, right? Like, what am I doing? Not even just the why, right? Because I knew the why. Why was just to share information, right? But what I was actually doing is, I think I was very surface level imagining. Oh, I just put content out there on TikTok, right? And then you start realizing that, no, that's not what I'm actually trying to do. What I'm trying to do is build a community, right? And once you set down with that sort of KPI, or what, like the key performance indicator, and it's like it's business 101, right, being applied to this, is figure out what indicates success for you. And for me, it was something like originally was subscribers. Now it's shifting over to actual newsletter subscribers, right? Because that's what I'm able to sort of signify as like a community I'm able to set up. So number one thing was just getting clear with this idea of, like, for a long time, I struggled with why and what I was doing this for, right? So I was just putting out a ton of random content just for like, oh, like, let me just look at whatever's trending on Instagram and like put it up. And like, it just wasn't real. It wasn't authentic, right? The second part was this friction too, with creating content and putting it out there, right? So it was like I said, it would be these exhausting long days where I would take hours to set up everything. And then I'd just be exhausted sitting there and be like, oh my God, okay, I just filmed all this, but I still have to edit it and I still have to schedule it. And then the third part also was just understanding this idea of, what am I going to focus on? Mm-hmm. Right? So like, oftentimes when you start, especially now, creating content, it's not a lack of options. It's often an abundance of them. Right. So it's like, it was twofold. One, where I was going to post, because I was obsessing at the time over Instagram, TikTok, and like Snapchat. Because the idea was, oh, just post everywhere and like maybe something will work, or like And then I remember a friend of mine who's like a huge, huge supporter of mine for a long time. And I remember her going, oh, like, I see the video of you on TikTok. And then I open up Instagram. It's the same exact video of you on Instagram. Yeah. And then I go on Pinterest. It's the same exact video on Facebook, YouTube. And she's like, I watched the first one. Second one, I'm barely watching it. Third one, I'm not even looking at it. Fourth one, I'm like, and then she was like, all you're doing is just hurting yourself across all these platforms, right? And I was like, the amount of stress I was taking to post all these things. So it was one sort of being like, okay, you know what? I'm going to focus on one place, which was TikTok. And then the second part, like the second version of that was also content-wise. Like, what kind of content am I going to focus on? For the longest time, I was trying anything and everything until I ended up settling on this idea that, you know what, the thing that I found the most fascinating about this whole stuff that got me started was stories, right? Real life stories of why certain companies did what they did. But along the way, I'd gotten so lost in trying to make a million of other types of content. But now I found that that's sort of my like style. And that's the thing that I've settled down on now. So almost all my videos are about sort of some sort of storytelling aspect. Here's what something did. Here's why they did it. And here's the cool thing about it. I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, that's awesome because, you know, those kind of struggles are real for a lot of creators, you know, trying to come up with a really interesting subject matter and then how to promote that or where to publish it. And what did really help you kind of focus on the content that you want to create, like in terms of TikTok, and what kind of subject matter you want to tackle? So was there like a turning point in your journey where you're like, you know what, tomorrow or next week, I'm going to start doing it this way instead of that way?
Yeah. There were two. The first one being, I think it was December of 2020. And I remember sort of sitting there after we'd been sitting in quarantine for about, I think at that point it was like, at least here it was like 9 or 8 months at that point. Mm-hmm. And I remember this was December 2020. I remember opening up my, my sort of goals and I found an old sheet that I had created in the beginning of 2020 that said, here are all the things I want to achieve by the end of 2020. And I'd done none of it. I just remember feeling horrible, like fully just devastated at that point. I remember sitting there going, my entire sort of last couple of years before that, I just said, oh, if I had a little more time, if I could just solely focus on this, I know I could make it work. And I remember sitting there going, dude, you've barely put out any videos. You've failed. And I remember putting out TikTok videos and getting like 57 views on them, right? And it was just the most devastating And meanwhile, I'd spent hours making these videos. Mm-hmm. So that was like one of those first ones was like, what? Of course I'm not going to see the success that I'm seeing, right? Because I'm not giving this an honest try. Like I'm not committing to actually posting videos, to actually doing things. And the way I got out of that, which is not something I recommend to people, right? is I try to put, when I know that there's something this important, I try to put almost like a guilt factor, right? Mm-hmm. Like all throughout growing up, right? One of my biggest sort of things was like, I have to do this for the family. I have to do this for the family, right? So it was something that always motivated me to push forward, right? Go through college, get a job, right? And it was always like that reminder, but I didn't really have a reminder when it came to this stuff. So I did is I actually ended up buying a really expensive computer that I couldn't afford whatsoever, right? I think I blew my first bonus that I'd ever gotten from work on this like computer. And then I just remember they were like, January 8th or something, your computer is going to be delivered. And I was like, that's it. I got to start doing this. I can't play around because I just had so much money on this computer. Yeah. And I told everyone that I could, every one of my friends, every like family member, oh yeah, I'm going to start posting content on TikTok. I'm going to da-da-da-da. And so the idea was I created this environment in which I just wasn't allowed to not take an action. I had to take some sort of action. Otherwise I was going to, I spent all this money on this computer that would have gone to waste. And then I also would have embarrassed myself in front of all my friends who are used to me saying, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it kind of thing. Right. So that was one sort of turning point there. The second one was almost a year later. That's wild. I've never sat down and thought about this. December 20 something, I was about to quit. So about a year later, I was so close to just like, at least quit TikTok, right? I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm going over, because joining TikTok, the idea was very naive. I'm going to join, I'm going to make hundreds of thousands of followers very quickly because I saw everyone blowing up, right? And then I'm going to move over to YouTube. Fast forward a year later, and I was sitting at like, I think 7,000 or something, right? Followers, which I hard earned. But at the time, I was just like, look at how much time I've spent in on this. Like at this point, am I just doing this to avoid going to YouTube? Because I'm scared of YouTube. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to post my last video. And I, by this point, posted all these like intricate videos, or at least what I thought were intricate, right? With like all this editing and blah, blah. I did a talk in October or November that I'd filmed, and it was that Barbie one that I was talking about. Horrible video, horrible audio. And I remember just going, you know what? Screw it. I have this one little clip from this that I really like, right? But the audio sucks, video sucks, whatever. Screw it. I'm going to put it up, and that's it. I'm just not going to look at TikTok again, right? At least for a couple weeks. I'm going over to YouTube. I posted the video up, and it just woke up the next morning. This video was like trending way higher than any of my videos had done, right? And that was sort of a big eye-opening moment, right? I spent so much time obsessing over how things looked and what I was saying, and I just, at the end of the day, just people are there to be entertained, to find, like, the biggest lesson I learned at that point was I now look at my content creation journey is I don't look at, oh, like, what's going to get views, what's going to get comments. Did I find something cool and fascinating? Okay, well, there are 7 billion people out there. Internet penetration is 4 billion, right? TikTok's penetration is like, I think, don't quote me, I think like I want to say 1 billion. I feel like I've heard
maybe more, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, there has to be at least 50,000 other people just like me who are like, yeah, you know what? The fact that Nike did that one little thing was kind of cool. So then the idea was, screw it. I'm not going to focus on anything else. I'm just going to share. Things I find fascinating, I'm going to put out there, right? And the goal became like finding more people like me. And then that was like that big sort of shift in the creative journey.
That's awesome. The funny thing is that as creators, sometimes we tend to like see the content creation from our perspective, not from the perspective of the audience. And we think people are going to see the inconsistency in our style. And we're scared of like changing things up, but people don't really care. They just want to see something that they like. And I know.
Yes. Halfway through, we changed our name, or the royal we, right? I spent weeks scared. Wow. I was like, no, like, we've built a brand loyalty.
The brand.
No one cares. No, it's not relevant. I changed the colors at one point, and I was like, dude, I spent hours obsessing over this detail that at the end of the day just didn't matter, right? Or, I mean, it mattered to me, but in the grand scheme of what we were trying to do is that it was focused on the wrong KPI, right? And it was a distraction.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives here, and he's almost like a million subscribers on YouTube. His channel called Project Elon. So he does like productivity and personal development for students mainly, but productivity.
I feel like I've seen this.
Yeah, Mike. His name is Mike. So we talked about this almost like last week about. So he want to change his brand to a new name from Project Elon to his personal name, like Mike something. And we're talking about how the audience will kind of like feel about it. And it turns out that people can, if they know you, that's fine. Like, you can change the name and it's not a big deal. But we, as creators, we tend to create those kind of like, big, wall in front of us of like, people will not like this because of this and that. And the marketplace doesn't really care that much.
Plus, for most of these, I try to think like how many creators I follow on TikTok that I watch all their videos, and I couldn't tell you their name whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I know, it's the guy with like the glasses, or there's that one guy that tells really good stories. But if their videos come up on my feed, oh my God, I love it. If I'm showing a friend, I will look and I will constantly search for I'll search for everything other than their name because I won't remember that, right? But that, it just points to the idea is like, people don't tend to, I think it was a Maya Angelou quote, people don't tend to remember what you said, they tend to remember how you made them feel, right? And if you look at it that way, then it's kind of like, okay, why not just create content around things that excite you? And then all the other minor details, I mean, things will work. You'll figure out a way to work them out.
Absolutely. I had a similar story with my tech channel where I was doing reviews for like laptops, MacBooks, iPhone, all this kind of stuff. And then I felt like one day I want to do like a documentary style video. And I was so scared, like literally like, oh my God, like what I'm doing. Like I wanted, like the funny thing is that when I had the channel for my channel, like for my YouTube channel, Minimal Nerd, it was, I want to do CNBC style documentaries. But it turned out that I did like Hackintoshing and reviews, and they kind of did well for the first year. And I was like, now I want to go back to my first idea, but then I was so scared to go away from those reviews and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's really tricky for creators to find their way around this.
Welcome.
Oh, that's my first video.
Yeah.
That's the one for Adele. Yeah.
Funny. You know what? I've come across your video in the past. I've come across your page.
Really?
Now that I think about it. Yeah, because your page is very, very familiar. Your page is very. It was because I liked your thumbnails. I was doing thumbnail research a while back, right? And so literally there was like almost like a week where all I did was I would sit there for, I mean, I'm not, again, another way to procrastinate by focusing on like tiny details. I spent a whole week just sort of clicking into every like random video. I would like click into their like profile to look at all their thumbnails and see if I can learn something. Yours is very, very familiar looking. But sorry, go on. Yeah.
That's awesome.
This idea of like going through, you wanted to do these sort of
change the format. Yeah, exactly. It was really tricky for me, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm still struggling with it now in terms of like finding the right format. But something that Mike and other people that I look up to kind of told me and really inspired me to go through it was basically the idea of getting yourself out there no matter what. Like, you want to change the format, just go for it. Maybe 1 month, 2 months, and then you're gonna find out you're let's say standing around it. Like, it's really hard for creators to change their content.
This is why I love
go
TikTok.
ahead.
No. This is exactly why I love, like, one of the questions I know you posed, which I was thinking about a lot, was like, what would I do if I was starting all over again? Holy crap! I would just focus. Oh wait, sorry, I don't know if I can. Curse on. But
a little bit is fine. Yeah, but it's gonna be on YouTube.
A little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna go on a whole tirade. But dude, it's what I absolutely love about what I've done. Right, is when I look at all the videos I made when I first started on TikTok versus now, the growth is just ridiculous. Like, out of the water, just blown away. My skill set has grown so much. But had I been doing that on YouTube, the repetitions just would not have been there. What, one video a week, if that, right? Which meant I would have one instance per week where I would be testing out my editing, where I'd be testing out my video, versus the TikTok side, right? Posting, I mean, those were hundreds of iterations, right? Hundreds of times where I got to like tweak a tiny little thing, make something a little bit better. And like what you're saying right now is just put it out there. Just put things out there. Because like the way I say it to people is like, worst case scenario, no one sees it. Okay, cool. Like, then there's no pressure. Nothing went wrong, right? Like, no one's going to make fun of you. No one's going to say anything because no one saw it, right? Best case scenario, a lot of people, or like the other extreme, a lot of people see it. Well, in that case, great, right? Even if it was a bad video, still, nonetheless, you got a huge audience that got a chance to take a look at that video, get to like give you feedback and for you to learn from the analytics, right? But like the more and more repetition, like over anything else, right? When someone's like, hey, if I'm starting off, how do I get better? Practice, right? Just make as many videos as you possibly can. The first time I made a video on my phone as opposed to my camera, right? Mind you, up until this point, using a professional 4K camera, filming in RAW, like editing in Premiere, audio is separate, so you have to sync it up. All of that maximum, right, takes me 30 minutes to bang out like 5 or 6 videos, right? Love that. That's super fast. On my phone, first time I'm in CapCut, and it took me freaking an hour and a half to get like a 45-second video done just because it felt so foreign. And then every time I kept forcing myself to do it, and now I'm faster and faster. But still, I'm faster if I do this whole huge setup than if I film it on my phone. But yeah, that whole thing of like, hey, just put things out there and like test and test. You could always change it later on.
Yeah, don't worry about the judging you. You're lucky if the marketplace is judging you. Most of the people don't care. They don't really care.
Most of the time, no one like cares, right? Yeah, so if you are like in that position of being judged, congrats, you're getting your 5 minutes of fame.
And here's the funny thing: something we don't really like appreciate as creators is like, if people actually want to join your community and they care about what you're doing, they're usually the people you want, the positive people. They want to support you. So it's like, what's the issue? The people who don't like what you do, they don't care, or they just say like something negative and they go away. Or the people that don't really care about you, which is the biggest part of the marketplace, they will not even bother with you. And the people that really care will join your community. Yeah. So there's no issue there, but we don't see it that way. Yeah, which brings us to the next question about the toxic comments and the
look at the king of segues. That was a beautiful segue, by the way, right?
I'm just trying, but like it did work. So yeah, like the toxic aspect of the internet. How do you deal with that? Like a lot of creators, I know personally some people who quit because of that. Like I don't want to name names, but I know a model. She used to do like TikTok videos about like fashion and like catwalking and stuff, and she actually quit because of a lot of like bullying and you know, this kind of stuff online. So it's sad from that side. But what can we tell to other creators listening to this, or people want to start, about the toxic, or what I call this is the way I call it, the dark side of the internet?
The dark side. Yeah. I think I'm going to speak from a place of privilege, right?
Okay.
For starters, right? I think being a guy on the internet is a little bit easy, especially in the niche that I'm in. I'm a South Asian guy who works in tech, right? Who often in my
same
videos,
for me,
right,
honestly. Like with my tech channel, it's like
right? Like
not the same issue.
I think I find it very fascinating, disappointing, right? Is like you'll see videos of like crypto, right, all the time on TikTok, right? And there'll be like all these guys doing like all these like, oh, this is like this crypto's gonna 100,000x in the next like week or something. And then you'll see like a female creator make the same exact video, and like the comments on both of them are so different, in a very disappointing way, right? So I think one, from that point of privilege of being a guy in like that business niche, right? Especially someone who looked like, there are a ton of people in that niche that already look like me, that operate like me. And then, so I think one, it makes it a little bit easier. I don't tend to have a lot of bullying. I think the bigger part is like people are judgmental in a certain sense. I think the first time I kind of felt it was that idea, like I put up a video that had done really well. I think it was like 100, I want to say 500,000 actually right now. But in that video, I just look exhausted, right? I had finished a whole shift at work and I was being interviewed by someone for something else. And in that video, you could just see my eyes are red, my like entire face is drooping. And in the entire comments, like people are like commenting on that, right? So at first it does hit a bit of your insecurity, right? It's like, oh, damn, okay. But to tell you the truth, I think what helps is this ability to be able to say that like, I do this not because I need to, but rather because I want to, right? And so then this way,
going back to the why, right? Why you starting this?
Exactly, right? Is like, I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing. And like the knowing that there are going to be haters, right? Knowing there are going to be people, like there'll be people who will push back on I'd seen someone handle this amazingly. There was, I forget who, but I remember anytime I'd see a negative comment or someone made fun of him, in the comments, he would reply and be like, oh, I didn't get this. Could you explain it? Or like something like, oh, why do you feel like this, right? Or like something even dumb, like, wow, this is whack, right? They're just going, stupid, right? Like, and so sometimes that's how I kind of feel when it comes to these comments, or like when people say stupid things. It's like, if people disagree with what I'm saying, then it's like, hey, explain. I love those. Because if someone's passionate enough to be like, oh no, your video sucks, you're wrong, that means that they think that they have something that wants to be said, that should be heard by others. So if you just prompt them a little bit, like, oh, what do you mean? Like, how am I wrong about this? Then they'll leave these long, big paragraphs, right? And like they'll just add more engagement to your videos. But one of the other things I like to do is when someone says something that like kind of feels mean, I love just going like, I remember like one time I made fun of a friend of mine, and literally in front of a group of us, and it was just like as a fun joke, right? I said something, and he looks at me and he goes, that's whack. And I just remember in that moment, I was like, he essentially was just like, dude, you're a child. But like in front of everyone, I was like, in that moment, I was just like, damn, I'm never, ever going to like make a joke like that ever again. And then I do the same exact thing here. Like what I think about is just kind of like when someone leaves like a mean note, it's just kind of like, wow.
And it's also like about the perspective. Like I have a funny story about this with my channel. I made a video about top 5 reasons to not buy the Mac Mini. This is when the M1 Mac Mini came out. But I made two, to actually be balanced, I made 2 versions of the video. Top 5 reasons to buy and top 5 reasons to not buy. So if you want it, this is why you should get it. If you don't want to buy, I mean, if this is not going to be good for you, so this is why not. So it's like a balanced steak, right? It's like, it makes sense. Like nothing is perfect. There are some things you like, some things you don't. Okay, but I remember the one for top 5 not to buy got a lot of dislikes and it got a lot of engagements. And it was mostly from Apple fans saying that I'm wrong. This is not right. Like, I love, like, most of the comments were kind of emotional. Like, I love my Mac Mini, is doing great. But I'm like, hey, did you actually address what I said? The Bluetooth has a problem. So that's it. And I remember like feeling, I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit down about it because, like, you know, I put a lot of effort in the video. It got a lot of views compared to the other one. Yeah, the funny thing, it got a lot of views compared to the positive one. And and I remember sending this to my friend who's another tech YouTuber, and he said, dude, that's not a negative comment. That's a positive one, because he showed me his comments and they were really, really toxic. So
like,
I felt, he made me feel good about my comments that I got, because like people only saying things like, my Mac Mini was really great. I don't think you're right. Nothing really like toxic in that sense, but his comments were he was doing videos about the Pixel and Xiaomi and stuff like that, and people really, really, really negative there, like really like attacking him personally. It was like, oh my god. So that's perspective when it comes to the negative aspects of the internet.
But I think you hit it. You also hit something that's so important that I was going to blank on. Having a group, someone who can pull you out of this entire, like, we get so caught up in this, right? Like, there would be times when like a video doesn't do well, and I would just be so like emotionally just like sad throughout the entire day, right? And it'd be just like really bad. And then I'll like talk. I have a couple of friends of mine who are creators, and I purposely have a couple of friends who aren't creators who I tell all this stuff to, because like you'll notice like the ones that are creators will be like, dude, everyone goes through it, all blah blah. The ones that aren't are kind of like, dude, are you kidding? There's like, don't you have bills that are due tomorrow, right? Like, why are you stressing over the likes on this one video when you literally have like your electricity bill is due the next day, right? Like, there are there's a world outside of this world, right? And you sometimes need to remember that and like pull yourself out and just be like, hold on, I'm not always living in that TikTok universe, right? Like there is that broader universe. And then I think it's also with comments like the ones you and I think I would seem that you and I get more similar, like, or similar type of comments where like people tend not to leave harsh comments about us personally, more about what we're saying or what we're doing.
Which is perfect. That's constructive, actually.
That's exactly what I was going to tackle, right? There are a couple of videos of mine where I will misspeak, right? I think I did a video recently that went really well where I talked about Thailand and how like a lot of the reason we see a lot of those Thai food places in the U.S. was because it was actually an organized effort by the government to spread Thai food called gastro diplomacy. Check it out, right? At any point. But in that video, I make the mistake of saying like, oh, like K-pop was is the biggest export for South Korea, which I know is not correct, but I misspoke just because of how fast I was trying to go in that video. And then a ton of people left comments, right? And that was a moment for me to go, wait a second, now I'm wrong there, right? And to like actually interact with those comments, let people know, hey, thanks for calling that out. So I do think that there is a little bit of like, take a moment, just be like, is there something I could learn from this negative comment? Can I twist and turn this around to be a positive thing for me, as opposed to just looking at it face value as a negative comment?
I love it. There are so many questions we have, but we kind of have to wrap up the interview soon. So I have one more question about the monetization. Do you have any ways to monetize TikTok, which is a question I get a lot? Like with YouTube, it's kind of like known out there that there is AdSense, there is affiliate marketing. And fun fact for me, I got more from affiliate marketing than from AdSense, which makes sense. And it was a big surprise for me. Like I got let's say the email from Amazon and one from Google. And like I was confused, at the beginning. It was like, which one is it? Like Google was way lower than the Amazon one. And I was like, oh, now it makes sense because, other YouTubers that I knew before, they said it's all about marketing yourself. You can have 1,000 subscribers or 10,000 or 1 million, but it doesn't matter like in terms of the views that much. I mean, AdSense can give you some income to kind of keep up with the costs and stuff. But in terms of really making good income from it, it's all about how do you promote yourself and do you monetize in different ways. And you can have like 50 subscribers and make more money than somebody with 50,000. Like it just matters about promotion. But when it comes to TikTok, I always get this question, but I'm not a TikTok guy and I don't know anything about this thing. So I want to ask you, are there ways to monetize TikTok and how do you go about it if you do?
Yeah. I think thanks for sharing your story. It's the same mechanics across all platforms. Right. There was there's Wired magazine, right? Have you ever seen Wired magazine?
Yeah, of course.
So one of the co-founders, Kevin Kelly, have you ever heard of his 1,000 fans theory?
No.
So Kevin
Tell us,
Kelly, I had a
please.
chance to speak. Yeah, I had a chance to speak with him a couple years ago, and I remember asking him like if you had one piece of advice for. And I told that was early when I was starting the content creation journey. His whole thing was like, if your goal is to make a sustainable income, right? You don't need millions of fans. You need 1,000 loyal fans. Because 1,000 loyal fans, even just charging them $10, buying something for $5 a month, even that's $5,000 a month that you're making, right? And which is a substantial number to be doing, right? And so even if you put the numbers to the side, his basic concept was like, it's important to have like that dedicated audience that you can actually, I hate using the word influencer because of influencer, but can you actually influence? Like, are you providing them enough value that they trust you and will take some sort of action? Like, that's why I tend not to look at views or likes as like, to me, those are vanity metrics. At most, they like kind of show me a certain direction that like something is taking. The one I care about the most are shares and comments, right? And then sometimes when TikTok allows you to have that feature where it'll show you the difference between the shares and the saves, then I care about that, right? Because what that tells me is like when you're sharing or saving something, that tells me that you are actually like finding it useful to the point where like you are sharing it or you are saving it for future reference, right? Versus if I see you have a ton of comments, like that it tells me that I'm building a community there. And then that key sort of KPI that I was talking about before is this idea of newsletter signups, right? So for monetization, the reason why I bring all this stuff up is I do monetize I'm in the creator fund, right? Which everyone knows just like notoriously creates like cents for everything, right? Personally, I find it more as like an exciting, like I find it fun. Every now and then I'll log in, refresh, and like it'll be up like a couple dollars, right? Which is kind of like, but it barely makes anything. I do some brand deals, right? But even with brand deals, it's not sustainable, right? I mean, I have my 9-to-5 job, I have family and all that kind of stuff to do. So the goal always is to systemize things, right? And negotiating with companies, figuring out the rights with stuff and all that is like, and then what your rates should be can be kind of difficult in that. So it's not as sustainable either. I think the more sustainable side is building that community aspect. So the one where I make the most money and while I also have the most fun and enjoyment is my one-on-one sessions. So people will book these one-on-one sessions or they'll book me to like speak at an event or something, which does end up taking sort of my physical time. But every one of those one-on-one sessions I do, I can also record that, cut it up into more content, right? And this becomes this cycle. And the best part about it is I get to actually talk to community members, right? Like actual business owners who are saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And we're able to go deep into their questions, which is, I think, where the most fun and sort of value comes out. So long story short, monetizing for me is just like the same as monetizing on any other platform, which is drive the community to be able to exist outside of that individual platform and providing them with some sort of valuable thing. Over time, hopefully that'll be something, whether that's a gated community that they'll have access to, but for now it's these one-on-one sessions.
Awesome. I really can relate to this because for me, what's his name again? Kevin, right? The Wired
Kevin
guy?
Kelly.
Kevin Kelly, yeah. So I had the same conversation with Mike, again, going back to Mike, where he told me that, he actually really, told me a lot of things about his income, and we dove kind of deeper into it, and it was mostly from courses. He was doing Skillshare.
Was this an episode or is this?
It's I think it's the 3rd episode on the podcast. It's on Spotify.
You already know I'm definitely going to be watching this.
Yeah, it's like 2 parts. Here's the funny thing about Mike. Mike is a really cool dude. So we did the podcast first for like 1 hour and a half. And of course, because he's a guest, and I'm like, thank you, Mike, for being on the show and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, he was actually in my place. We recorded like here. It was only audio. And it was like, Zach, I want to do more. And I'm like, yeah, sure, you're the guest. I'm here for you, man. And we did like 3 hours and a half, and we had to cut it into 2 pieces. It was so much value. Like he actually dove deeper into his content creation, from starting out to how he went to 1 million subscribers and how he make his money, the courses, the brand deals, all of it. It's really, really fun. And the fun thing about Mike is going to be our guest speaker for event here. So I live in Vietnam, by the way. I don't know if you know that. So I live in Saigon. And he's going to do he's going to do our flagship content creator event here. It's going to be like a keynote speaker, workshop, and then networking. It's really exciting. It's going to be the end of this month. So dude, that's a small plug.
I'm definitely plug away, please. I'm taking a look at your on the YouTube channel right now. So literally right after this is the first thing. Yeah,
so Spotify actually is where you can find the podcast.
Done. Oh, even better.
Yeah, because it was only audio first, then we switched to YouTube. YouTube is just like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So, Chirag, I want to ask you the last question, which is basically you speaking to somebody who can relate to you. What would be your advice to somebody starting today, let's say on TikTok, and they have maybe similar background to you, so they want to start into business. They don't want to do the dance videos, right? So, which is basically what everybody thinks about when we talk about TikTok. And they want to build an audience and a business around TikTok. Now is your chance to talk to them. By the way, this will be the first clip in the video. So go ahead.
I love that. I love that. All of us, when we come across something that we find interesting, right, we tend to save that to the side somewhere. Right? Whether that's on TikTok, you'll have like the saved folder. On Instagram, same thing. Or like you come across a blog post that you find fascinating and you'll save it to the side. That was something that made you go, wait, stop, watch, save. There are people that are just like you out there. 7 billion people, internet penetration 4 billion, TikTok, Instagram, like a billion what? Like there are 110%. There are people that are just like you out there. And all like my number one like tip that I can give someone, at least the way that I approach my content creation, where I've had the most amount of success that I've had so far with this idea, is I no longer create content thinking, how am I going to grow followers? How am I going to become famous? How am I going to make money? Blah, blah. I found this fascinating. I want friends, right? So I'm going to put this out and see who else finds this fascinating. And when you do that, you take the pressure of what you're doing completely off. It's no longer I am this content creator who needs to wow this audience and convince them and influence them. It is, I'm Chirag. Here's a really cool, funny story that I found about this company that made me laugh or made me look, wow, okay, maybe I should learn more about this. I'm just taking a camera out, I'm putting it up, and then I'm posting it under Entropy. All I'm essentially doing is, it is essentially one big group chat that I've created with the entire world that's online, saying, hey guys, check out this really cool thing. And in that process, it has managed to not only make me a lot happier about what I do, but what I found is I'm starting to build actual connections. And every time I do that, I get a little bit better. So the number one thing is take the pressure off. All you're doing is look at it as if you're creating one big group chat with the entire world. You're just saying, hey, look, here's this cool thing, right? The second part of it is this idea that repetition's above all else. Everyone always says quality over quantity. My idea is that it's not that, it's like quantity for the sake of building quality, right? Get out there, post your first video, because even if you are someone who's never created a first video and you think, oh, like I'm just saving this up and eventually I'll get there, is like, you don't even know what the ideal audio volume should be versus your video, right, in TikTok, right? Those are like these tiny little details that we don't think of when we think about posting on TikTok or thinking on posting on Instagram or YouTube or anything. Like not a lot of people realize that there are playlists on YouTube, and maybe you want to think about whether you should put your video in a playlist. These little tiny things, but when you go to actually post your first video, you're going to sit there and these are going to be decisions you're going to take freaking hours to make. Better to get that out of the way, test, so that slowly you'll become better and better and more confident over time. Everyone starts off scared. The goal is solve for that.
Beautifully said. That's perfect. Chirag, thank you so much for being here. Before you go, can you tell us where people can find you and what are your next big projects?
Absolutely, 110%. So my name is Chirag again, right? Grew up in a small business family, creating content to make business education and knowledge more accessible for small business owners, Gen Z, Gen X sort of founders as well. You can find me across all major platforms at Entrekey, ENTREKEY. Otherwise, also at entrekey.com, where I have a bunch of stuff. The number one way, follow, interact with, right? Let me know what kind of content you all find fascinating, because that's the thing that sort of drives me. There's no point in me making videos if no one's going to watch them and actually find them useful. As far as big projects, please, people can book me for one-on-one sessions, which have been doing really phenomenal, right? You get the chance to sort of really connect and talk through things. Coming up and speaking at a bunch of different events over the next couple months, so really excited about that as well. And one of the more bigger, broader projects I'm working on is actually setting up a community of small business owners, right? Giving access to not only each other, but also to me, and then also this ability to bring in guest speakers, as well as make access to a bunch of really cool content. So if people are fascinated by that, make sure to check out the newsletter at entrekey.com.
Chirag, thank you so much. And I feel that a lot of people will be inspired and from this, and really start their journey because they can relate to you and they can relate to what we said. So thank you so much for doing that.
Appreciate it. I'm going to pause there. Wait, Zach, what about us? What about you? How can people reach out to you? This is awesome, man. You've done amazing.
ContentCreatorLife.com. So that's the website. And Content Creator Life is going to be the YouTube channel for only the interviews. But I'm a poly worker. That's how we met. So I have Minimal Nerd as a tech YouTube channel. And I also have Zach Create, which is my Instagram, and TikTok. I'm just starting there to help people. So I try to help content creators kind of navigate the world of video and how to make their brand, because I come from a branding strategy kind of like background, and I kind of mix it to marketing and branding and try to help people navigate video online. So that's what I do. So, but thank you for that. Like, you're the first guest that asked me back that.
You got it, right? Yeah. I mean, you've done amazing, man. This was really natural. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate
Plus,
it.
This whole
thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to keep all the details for Chirag in the show notes, and see you guys in the next one.
Perfect.
Bye.
Bye.